In this episode, we shift from the big picture of AI risk to something very practical that helps beginners feel steady. Understanding how the AAIR exam works as an experience, not as a mystery. A lot of smart learners struggle on certification exams not because they do not understand the topic, but because they do not understand the testing environment and they make avoidable mistakes under pressure. When you know the format, you know what kind of thinking the exam is rewarding, and you can pace yourself instead of guessing. When you know how scoring works, you stop wasting time trying to game the test, and you focus on doing the simplest thing that consistently earns points, choosing the best answer based on the exam's perspective. When you know the rules, you avoid disqualifying errors and you reduce anxiety, because uncertainty is a major source of stress during a timed exam. By the end, you should have a clear mental model for how to approach the exam calmly, what to do before you click start, and how to treat retakes as part of a plan instead of a personal failure. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. The first thing to understand is what the exam is really measuring, because that drives everything else about format and scoring. A certification exam like this is not trying to see whether you can build an AI model, write code, or remember obscure trivia, especially at the level of a beginner-focused course. It is trying to see whether you can think in a disciplined risk management way about AI, using clear concepts and consistent judgment. That means you are being tested on recognition, interpretation, and decision logic more than on memorization. If you picture the exam as a set of questions that want you to reason like a responsible organization, you will be closer to the target mindset. Many questions are designed so that multiple answers sound plausible, and your job is to choose the one that best fits governance, accountability, evidence, and defensible decisions. When you study with that goal in mind, the details you learn have a purpose, because each detail becomes a clue you can use to pick the best answer. Now let's talk about what format usually feels like to a test taker, because beginners benefit from imagining the experience. Most certification exams present you with a question prompt and several answer choices, and you choose the best one based on the scenario or the concept being tested. The question may be short and direct, or it may include a small story about a workplace decision, a risk concern, or a governance problem. The answer choices often include a few that are clearly wrong, plus two that are close, where one is better aligned to sound risk thinking. Some questions test vocabulary and definitions, but many test whether you can apply a concept to a workplace situation. Because of that, reading carefully is part of the skill, and you should expect wording that nudges you toward thinking about evidence, accountability, impact, and controls. The exam is not trying to trick you for fun, but it is trying to separate casual understanding from disciplined understanding. Timing and pacing are where many first-time test takers lose points without realizing it. When people feel rushed, they start skimming, they miss a single keyword, and their answer becomes about what they imagine instead of what the question actually asked. A good pacing habit is to treat the exam like a long walk, not a sprint, and keep your speed steady rather than jumping between extreme slow and extreme fast. If you encounter a question that feels confusing, you should be able to make a reasonable choice and move on, instead of spending a huge amount of time trying to become perfectly certain. This is not about being careless. It is about respecting the fact that all questions matter and time is a limited resource. Many exams allow you to mark questions and return to them, and that ability is valuable because it lets you protect your pace without abandoning a hard question forever. Your goal is to answer everything, because unanswered questions usually cannot earn points. Scoring is another area where confusion creates stress, so we want a simple, usable understanding. Most certification exams score you based on how many questions you answer correctly, and the system may use a scaled score, which means your raw number correct is converted into a score range. A scaled score is not meant to be mysterious. It is often used to keep passing standards consistent across different versions of an exam. The practical point for you is that you should not fixate on what each question is worth or try to calculate your score while testing. Instead, treat every question as an opportunity to earn points and focus on accuracy and consistency. It is also common for exam programs to include unscored questions used for future exam development, and that can feel unfair if you do not know it exists. The best mindset is to assume every question counts and give each one your best effort, because you cannot reliably tell which ones are unscored. A common beginner mistake is believing that the exam rewards cleverness when it really rewards alignment with good governance and risk discipline. For example, if an answer choice promises a quick fix that skips documentation, skips accountability, or skips oversight, it often sounds attractive to a rushed person, but it conflicts with the mindset these certifications tend to emphasize. Another common trap is choosing the most technical answer because it feels smarter, even when the question is about decision rights, policy boundaries, or reporting. If a question is asking who should own a decision, the best answer is usually the role with accountability, not the role with the most technical detail. If a question is asking what to do when AI is used in a high-impact context, the best answer usually includes tighter oversight and evidence, not simply trusting the tool. Thinking like a responsible organization is the core skill that turns knowledge into correct answers. Exam rules matter because they shape what you can bring, how you behave, and what can invalidate your score. Even when rules feel obvious, beginners should treat them like part of the exam content because the consequences of breaking them can be severe. Testing programs often have strict requirements around identification, timing, and personal items, and the test center or remote proctoring environment may enforce them closely. If the exam is proctored remotely, rules can include where you can look, whether you can speak out loud, whether you can take breaks, and what your testing space must look like. If the exam is in a test center, rules can include lockers, prohibited items, and monitoring. None of this is meant to intimidate you. It is meant to protect exam integrity. The reason we discuss it in an orientation is so that you plan ahead and reduce friction on exam day. Another practical rule area is how the exam handles breaks and interruptions, because this affects pacing and stress. Some exams allow breaks, but the clock may keep running, which means breaks are a trade-off against time. Some exams treat leaving the camera view in a remote setting as a violation, even if you are just stretching, so you need to know what is allowed before you start. In either environment, technical issues can occur, and the best protection is preparation, like having a stable connection, a quiet space, and knowing the check-in process. A beginner-friendly approach is to plan your exam day like a small mission, reduce surprises, reduce distractions, and make the environment boring. When the environment is boring, your brain can focus on reading and reasoning, which is what earns points. The more you remove uncertainty, the easier it is to stay calm when you hit a hard question. Because this is an AI risk certification, it is worth emphasizing what the exam is unlikely to do, so you do not waste time preparing the wrong way. It is unlikely to require you to recall specific vendor features, specific tools, or detailed configuration steps. It is also unlikely to require advanced math or deep model architecture, because the goal is risk understanding and management thinking, not engineering mastery. Instead, expect questions about concepts like governance, documentation, ownership, assessment discipline, monitoring expectations, and how to translate risk into decisions leaders can defend. Expect questions that test whether you understand why AI risk is different from traditional software risk, but in a high-level way. Expect questions where the correct answer is the one that creates clarity, evidence, and accountability. When you study, focus on definitions, and then practice applying them to simple workplace examples, because application is what converts knowledge into correct choices. Retake policies are a major emotional topic for new learners, and the healthiest way to approach them is to treat them like a normal part of certification planning. Many people pass on the first attempt, and many people do not, and neither outcome defines your intelligence or your future in the field. What matters is how you respond, because a retake can be a structured learning event rather than a discouraging surprise. Most programs define a waiting period between attempts and a limit on how many times you can retake within a certain period, and those constraints exist to protect integrity and encourage real preparation. The practical planning move is to assume that if a retake is needed, it will be scheduled intentionally, not emotionally, after you identify weak areas. That mindset prevents panic and helps you preserve motivation, which is the most valuable resource in long-term study. To make retakes useful, You need a way to interpret your performance without turning it into self-criticism. If you do not pass, the first step is to identify whether the issue was content knowledge, question reading discipline, time management, or exam day conditions like stress and fatigue. Many test takers actually know the material but lose points by misreading prompts, rushing, or changing correct answers under anxiety. Others struggle because they studied definitions but did not practice applying them to decisions. Some struggle because they attempted the exam before they had enough repetition and memory stability. A retake plan should match the real cause, because doing more of the same is not always the right fix. The most effective retake plans improve the study method, not just the study volume. Even if you pass on the first attempt, everything we are discussing still matters because exam literacy makes you faster, calmer, and more accurate. When you know how the exam behaves, you can use simple strategies like reading the question carefully, identifying what it is truly asking, eliminating obviously wrong answers, and then selecting the best remaining choice based on governance and risk logic. When you encounter two close answers, you can ask which one creates clearer accountability, stronger evidence, and more defensible outcomes. When a choice sounds exciting but vague, you can be cautious because vague promises are a common sign of a weaker answer. When a choice includes practical risk discipline like documentation, monitoring, or escalation, it often aligns better with the certification mindset. None of this replaces studying, but it helps you use your knowledge effectively during testing. Another helpful perspective is to see the exam as a language test as much as a content test. The exam uses certain words consistently, like risk, impact, likelihood, controls, governance, accountability, and evidence, and those words are not interchangeable. Beginners sometimes treat these as general terms, but the exam often expects precise meanings. For example, a control is not just any good idea. It is something designed to reduce risk or keep behavior within boundaries. Accountability is not the same as doing the work. It is being answerable for outcomes. Evidence is not the same as confidence. It is support that can be examined and defended. When you become fluent in that language, questions become clearer because you can see what category of thinking is being tested. This kind of fluency is built through repetition, not through last-minute cramming. We also need to talk about what to do in the moment when you feel stuck, because every test taker experiences that. When a question feels confusing, slow down for a moment and look for the core task. Is it asking for the best next step, the best owner, the best control, the most likely risk, or the most appropriate response? Then look for constraints in the prompt, like whether the context is high impact, regulated, or customer-facing, because those clues change what is defensible. If you cannot fully decide, eliminate choices that are extreme, vague, or skip oversight, and choose the one that fits disciplined risk management. Then move on and protect your timing, because the exam is a collection of points, not a single debate. Staying calm is not just emotional. It is a performance skill that protects reading accuracy and reduces careless errors. As we wrap up, the goal is not to make you obsess over exam mechanics, but to make the mechanics boring so your mind can focus on the real work of reasoning about AI risk. You should understand that the exam experience is structured, that scoring rewards correct decisions rather than clever tricks, that rules are strict and must be respected, and that retakes are a normal planning consideration rather than a disaster. If you prepare with disciplined study and you walk into the exam knowing what to expect, you reduce anxiety and increase accuracy. In the next steps of this course, we will build the knowledge and the decision logic that the exam is designed to measure, and we will do it in a way that makes you comfortable applying concepts to realistic situations. For now, keep the mindset simple. Learn the language of AI risk, practice applying it, respect the testing rules, and treat the whole process as a steady climb rather than a single high-pressure moment.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.